Hello, everyone, and welcome to Two Dudes Snapping. My name is NickDaGreekGeek, and I am here with my amazing co-host, Joe, your Snap DJ from Snap Decisions. You can find me on Twitch, Twitter, and Instagram as NickDaGreekGeek, and Joe's on Twitter and YouTube at Snap Decisions. Please feel free to check both of us out. We've got cool stuff going on, and we've got a really cool month to talk about. We have the new card this month, and a lot of really interesting stuff. Joe, how's your week in Snap been?
It's been good. It's been good, man. You know, whenever you get Infinite, it's kind of like a break. You know, you don't really have too much to do. So I was just kind of messing around with some different decks, getting ready for Surtur. So I was playing a Tens deck, kind of a revised one a little bit with Typhoid Mary, Cosmo, and an Armor in there. So just kind of to protect the big cards. But yeah, and of course, you know, it'll welcome Surtur pretty much. In fact, I named it We Want Surtur when I was playing it. So but yeah, you know, it's very low key and relaxed at the end of the month, especially when you've hit Infinite already. So yeah, it was kind of nice, and I'm looking forward to the new month, as I think a lot of people are. It seems like, you know, we got a few really good cards last month. You know, Agent Venom was really good, and still seems like maybe the best one of the bunch, and you know, another good card or two. But I think that I have a funny feeling this month is going to be a little bit better.
I hope so. Like, I didn't hate any of the cards from last month. Anti-Venom has started to grow on me a little bit. I've been playing it in a few different decks. I know it fits in that negative vein. There was a Wiccan deck that I was using, and it worked really well. And when he works, you know, it's hard to stick your nose up at a zero cost, pretty much anything. Like, you're filling your deck with stuff that benefits you just by hitting the board. Maybe it doesn't have the body. You know, having to throw down a 0/0 Wiccan without a Luke Cage kind of sucks, but hey, that's what Shadow King is there for as well. You know, there's ways around it, and there's ways to mitigate the loss from his card. But it's not the kind of card that just sticks in any deck. It is a limited application, and I think there's a high skill cap on it, and I think that's the only thing that holds it back, plus the fact that everything is a Series 5 card and 6,000 tokens, or 4 keys, potentially.
I think a lot of people weren't really sure how to use it. And that was the idea I even heard from some of the creators. They just didn't really know what to use it for. And of course, yeah, with the Luke Cage thing, and that I was listening to Glazer's pod, and he of course had Glenn Jones on this episode. It was his 100th episode. And Glenn was talking about the design of it and what they kind of thought. And they, you know, they knew that the of course, that the Luke Cage interaction would be there. And anytime you can get a zero card, it's good. And so I was using it in Tribunal. I stuck it right in Tribunal to play it because Luke Cage is in that deck a lot of times anyway. And it worked a lot. A lot of times I'd get like the Onslaught for free, or I'd get the Iron Man for free. I just think that the month was just kind of a weird one. Like, when you have cards, and I think I look at it this way, when you have cards that are all this similar or the same type of card, like they're all symbiotes, it kind of made it, I think, a little more boring to me in that respect, because, and even when I would do my show and I'm talking about the comics, like, they're almost all the same. They all have the same powers, the same abilities. They look a little different, but it's all like, so whenever you do that and you don't get one character varied from the other, I think maybe that could have led to some people being a little bit bored with it too.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's hard because, you know, they introduced this activate ability, which, even though some of the cards that they released with it were kind of not great, it was at least interesting. It was something different. It was a different way to interact with the game. And then you look at the next month and they're just like, well, what if we did no activate abilities at all and had a whole bunch of boring characters on there? And you just kind of get a lot of boring characters. And unfortunately, that is limiting as far as making it really accessible, making it exciting. You know, Agony was fine, I think, is a good way to describe a lot of the cards that are there. But
they asked him a good question too about Agony, and saying that a lot of people kind of thought it was kind of like compared to like an Gunny, I think, asked him, kind of compared to an uncommon card in Magic. And his answer was kind of cool. And he's like, well, you know, we kind of knew that it wasn't going to be like a game breaking card. So in effect, I think that they went in that ahead of time, kind of planned it that way. And it looks like, well, what is it? King Eitri is this month's one that's going to be the giveaway one. I think that's maybe in the diner. So, and again, that one kind of looks like it's not great. It fits a certain stereotype of decks. But yeah, I'm excited to move on. I know when we get through that, and I enjoy the comic book lore so much that I like the different the comics. I've already been looking up Surtur and Frigga, the show. And it's just so cool to see like those characters originated in such old books like 1964, 1965. And I love that kind of stuff. And I love when the characters are different, and you're just going to get different powers, different abilities out of every single one. And we're getting activate again, like you said. Yep. So we got activate cards this month too. So I think people are going to be looking a little more forward to this month than they were prior to last month's. And then of course we have December, and we don't know anything about it. Nope. We know nothing about December. There's rumors saying it could be the Rivals set and stuff, but nobody knows anything. We haven't seen any data mines or anything like that. I didn't look today, so I don't know if they're out there, but yeah, that's exciting too. Sometimes it's cool not knowing what you're getting. Sometimes.
Yeah, that's one of the problems with being involved in it to this degree, being a content creator. You are in a situation to where you're just like, well, I need to know everything, but you never get surprised. Like working in the movie industry, I've talked to people who've been in there, and it's sometimes hard for them to just be able to sit back and enjoy something because there's so much else going on. Yeah. And that is a bit rough. Okay, and we're back. And you know what? I'm going to let you in. I may edit this in post. I may not. But if you saw the We Are Venom background, you did. It's been Surtur this whole time. Anyway. Back on track. I know you don't have a ton of time today, and I want to get through this. I have been desperately looking. I have needed this. Our chat's it's just comfortable and easy, and I really like that. When I do other videos, I'm still trying to get that flow in place as to how I want to do it. Trying to be too professional or too whatever, and I think it just ends up making me feel stilted. And I need to bring some of this energy into that. But
there you go.
Let's start with some comics, and
sure.
I know you've got some out here. So I've got my picks, but again, I want you to talk about yours because I absolutely love yours. Okay, so Joe, you've got some comics here to talk about. One of them I never read, but always wanted to. It was always in the wheelhouse of the Sandman stuff. Grendel is up your alley, and I'm like, I need to check it out. I may have read it, and I completely forgot about it, and I'm annoyed, but it gives me something to look at. But the death of Superman, I mean, if you were alive during the time, didn't matter how old you were and you were into comics at all, you knew about the death of Superman. So please, I would love you to talk about it.
Absolutely. I chose Death of Superman because honestly, I had been not reading for probably the only time in my life comics before this came out. I went from when I went to college, and I didn't really keep up with them. I left a lot of the books that I had at home, and I just kind of grew out of it a little bit. And I guess of course, Batman 89 brought some of that back for me. But then when this book came out, I had to, as soon as I saw the advertisement for this, and this was kind of groundbreaking because this was everywhere. This was all over the news. This was in newspapers. This was on media, on TV. And it's the first time that I've seen a comic book like that advertised everywhere. And by the time I realized what was going on and how the book was coming out, I had no way of getting it because this thing sold out. You could not find it. And I had gone out to some comic book stores, and I found some older books that were in the series of Doomsday. So those of you that don't know the story, this was the last part of the book where Doomsday appeared and of course came in and fought Superman to the death. But Doomsday was in about 4 or 5 other books prior to this, and they were all different Superman titles that strung across and then ended up in this. Doomsday, of course, was buried in the earth, and he came out of that big box. And I'll never forget just seeing, many of the issues leading up to him, you just had a one panel at the very end of the comic showing Doomsday punching his way out of that box or steel box that he was contained in. And then you just saw him get out of it at the end. And that was when it led into that. So I ended up, I couldn't read this right away, which killed me. I had to actually wait for the graphic novel to come out, which they kind of fast tracked. It wasn't that long after. Yeah. So I remember reading it in that way first. And then I did end up getting my hands on a couple of the copies. This book came in a black bag.
Yes.
So it was in a black bag and the Superman emblem on the front. And of course, he had the, so it's very much a somber thing where, and again, the news stories, people saying that they have decided after all these years to kill off Superman. And they were interviewing some of the creators. I think it was Jeff Johns at the time for DC. Yep. And there might've been a few others, but they were talking to some of them and like, how could you do this? And why would you make this decision? This is insane. But I remember, when I got to this book finally, and I was able to read it, it is single panels on each page. And I have never seen a comic book done that way. No little windows, just single panels for each single page that they did. And yeah, that's the cover is just obviously very somber. And if you haven't read it, I definitely suggest you do. But the coffin itself has a black blanket over top with the Superman symbol on it. That's kind of where they get that from. But it was just a masterpiece, and the art is brilliant. And then the double page at the end when he dies and Lois is there holding him in her arms. His cape is flying from the flag, and just they both kind of hit each other. Doomsday dies and Superman dies at the very end. But it's just a masterful thing, and it brought me whatever they did worked, because it brought me back to comic books and reading more comics. And of course, after that, I was hooked. I read the Death and Return of Superman, they called it. So I read the whole Return storyline, which went crazy because you had 4 different Supermen that spawned out of it, and then they were all trying to take his place. It was Steel, Superboy, the cyborg Superman, which they found out was the Eradicator from another comic of Superman. And that kind of got silly after a while. But then, of course, Superman Return came back, and he has the long flowing hair, the long like 80s permed hair. He kind of looked like Fabio. But yeah, this was just very cool to read. And I always like to put music to comics for whatever reason. Sometimes I'd be listening on my little Walkman that I had or whatever when I'm reading a book. The song called Love Is on the Way came out that year. And now I forget, I can't remember the band name either, but
I'll figure
they were like a progressive rock band that came out with they did an album called The Lizard as well. I can remember seeing the green cover of the album. But anyway, I remember listening to that, and while I was reading through the book, and once it got to the part where he dies, at the end, the words and the lyrics just fit the book. And I'm like, man, but this was just I think this is a once in a lifetime thing. They kill people in comics all the time, and then they just bring them back. It doesn't last. Most recently, I think, killed Ms. Marvel off in Marvel Comics, and she was back in almost like a month. So this never happens where they don't come back right away. But this one, you just really weren't sure. And it really, really just hit me. And it's what brought me back to comics. So I'll be kind of forever thankful for it. Was it a publicity stunt? Very possibly, with DC kind of comics a little bit kind of floundering and stuff at the time. But in a way, and I know that there are people from Marvel and stuff that have talked about this book too, in a way, it led to the big resurgence of comics in the 90s. It led to all those crazy covers we got and the multiple foil covers and this cover and that cover. And now the comics are literally worthless because they were printed so many times. So you can say whether it was good, whether it was bad. But for me, it brought me back to reading comics. And for that, I'll be forever grateful for it.
And I think if that hadn't happened, I don't know if you and I would be here talking today, because I don't know if Marvel would have gotten the strength that they did, even considering that throughout the 90s that sort of went through this weird overload of comics, and then everybody got sick of comics, and then the rise of the third party comics and more stuff. Like Grendel was able to shine, but it was a smaller market. And, I know it's never fully recovered, but it propelled the movie industry, which, fuels back into the comics industry, because if they don't have the comic characters to create, when they, create something that's not been in the comics, it's never usually to the same level. So it's a push and pull with that sort of stuff.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. I think that if they weren't daring enough to try to do this or take this chance, you probably wouldn't have seen much of, like, go to Spider-Man, for instance. And this is another one of my favorite books, is the Craven's Last Hunt series, where he literally kills Spider-Man, puts him in a coffin. And I'm sure that came about because of this. People just kind of testing the waters. Well, and of course he wasn't dead. He just drugged him and then he brought him back. But, they took a chance. They took a chance with the most popular superhero on the face of the planet. And killing him off and seeing what would happen. What would it be like? And then the issue right after, where they have the funeral and all the superheroes are there. Batman's there, and they're all carrying the coffin, and Wonder Woman and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, it was just, it was just crazy. And even Lex Luthor, who was a little bit different in the 90s. He had long red hair. He was a clone, I think. I don't even know. But, he was very different. But even he attended the funeral. Of course, everyone just realized what would happen when they did that. And now, all these years later, oddly enough, Superman and Lois, the season that they're doing right now, is adapting this story. And I'll tell you what, it is better than the thing that they did in Superman Batman by far. By far. The Doomsday looks incredible. The story is just better. And I'm like, wow, like this is on TV, and it looks way better than Cave Troll Doomsday in that movie. Yeah. And I'm sure this isn't probably the last time you'll see it adapted. It's that much of a historical book. So if you haven't read it, and you're into comics and you're into history of comics and stuff like that, and not just Marvel, but I would definitely recommend it. You can get this in graphic novel form and read it from the very beginning. When he goes through the Teen Titans, and he goes through all the Doomsday, just goes through everybody, you'll see, and then the big epic battle. Of course, it's Superman at the end, but it's definitely a must read for comic book fans for sure.
Yeah, I agree. It was really lightning rod for the comic community at the time. I still remember going into a comic book store and seeing that there, and my dad had a weird reaction to it because he had, he was old enough to have the Action Comics where Superman, of which his mom threw out, which is why he tried.
Oh my God, that book's worth millions of dollars.
He would think about that all the time. He talked about that so much, and it's why he tried to, help fuel my comic, love. But the problem is, they knew the value of it, so they just printed a million different variants and a million different copies, so nothing was worth anything. Yeah,
they were worth a lot right when they first came out because no one just could get them. The first print run, like nobody could get a hold of them, and they were up to, oh my God, I saw them for $300, $400 at the time. And then once they printed up so many after that, the book just fell down. You could get a copy of this now in the black bag for probably like $2 because that's how many that were printed. In fact, some of the ones that came before it, like those older ones where Doomsday was there, but not necessarily fighting Superman, they're worth a lot more money now than the actual Death of Superman book because the print run of those was much less. So crazy, but big part of comic book history. And I've always been a fan of Superman ever since the Christopher Reeve stuff. I was watching the old George Reeves Superman in black and white on my grandmother's TV growing up. So I've loved the character. I know some people either like him or hate him, but I've always loved the character. And it was just a really, really good read. So, but yeah, so if you haven't read it, they also did make a novel for this. There is an actual book novel you could read if you really want to go into more detail. And the creators of the comics actually wrote the novel. So it's basically a novel of what would happen if they were allowed to make the book as big as they would have wanted to. And then they also have that on audiobooks. So you can listen to that out on audiobooks as well. They used to do that back in the 90s too. The whole Breaking of the Bat story too, which I may talk about one day. They made a book of that as well. They have a novel out of that too. So, yep.
Nice. As someone who read the Star Trek novels,
yes,
I can relate.
I've read a lot of those too. Star Trek, Star Wars. Yeah, I was a big book nut. I used to read all the actual books and stuff too.
Yep. And now that stuff is, I don't know if reading that stuff is necessarily cool, but if you had like a Star Trek shirt, you're cool. But
yeah,
when we were kids, wearing that sort of stuff was definitely a straight line to, being pointed at and called a nerd.
Most of the time, yes. Yeah, that's very true. That's very true.
Now tell me about Grendel, because again, this one is even more up my alley, being the, kind of weird guy that likes the oddball stories. Grendel kind of fits that.
Grendel came out all the way back in 1982, and I didn't even realize it was that. I had got onto this comic quite later in the 90s when, of course, my friend who owned the comic book store kind of turned me on to it. I didn't know much about the character. In fact, the first ever book I read of this was the one with Grendel Prime, they called him. Grendel Prime kind of had a similar outfit, but he looked almost like Iron Man. He had a big, like, hulking armor type suit that he wore. And then I found out later he was a robot. So it was kind of crazy. When you look at it, number one, I just got drawn to his outfit. I love the mask that he wears with the white eyes and stuff in there. He when you were going through the 90s, was kind of when Spawn was coming to play and all that kind of stuff. So I was kind of digging the look for Spawn. I liked the books and stuff at first. So when my friend Mike, who owned the store, said to me, he's like, Joe, I got a book for you, which he tended to do quite a bit and really made my wallet a lot lighter. But he showed me Grendel, and I'm like, what is this? And then he told me, and he said, there's this here. He said, you want to get up on it. He said, read a couple of the graphic novels. They haven't. And I was like, wow, okay. The guy's name is Hunter Rose, and he's very similar to Batman in a way of that he's rich, and he kind of just becomes this other persona. So it's kind of like he's kind of like a ninja mixed with, he knows a lot of martial arts, but he's also skilled in weapons. So I guess the closest you can kind of say would be a hitman type character that just goes and a lot of the stuff he does is for hire. He does stuff for money and he does, but no one can distinguish him from the other identity because, of course, again, like similar to Bruce Wayne, people would think that this rich guy is not going to be going out and slaughtering people and killing people. And the books are very gory, very gruesome, a lot of blood, a lot of guts, and so. But I enjoyed it. I liked it. There was a lot of stuff that went back to. There was even some of the stories that went into feudal Japan. They went back, and they do get a little confusing because from time to time the characters will change. Okay. Like I said, the Grendel Prime robot part, and then they do go and they change identities all the time. So that Grendel you see on that cover there, Devil in the Deed's a very good storyline, by the way. That's probably the one I'd recommend to people to read. That's the one that he's most known for. Okay. But if you're into that kind of thing, the artwork is fantastic. There were some of the books that they were done in all black and white, and they would just use black and white and red ink for the actual blood and stuff like that. But I really enjoyed it. And like a lot of the suggestions that Mike would give me, I would end up loving them. And then I would end up wanting more of the books. He was a great salesman, and that's probably why he did really well in the bookstore. But it became one of my picks that I would need to get every week that came out. Now this is a Dark Horse comic, but the older ones, I have to look this up because I don't even know. They were on so the first publisher of them was called Comico Comics. So Comico. I knew they didn't come out first with Dark Horse. They ended up being bought by Dark Horse later down the line. Hunter Rose, of course, was the main one. Christine Spar, Brian Lee Sung, Orion Asante, Epi Thatcher, Grendel Prime. They're all the different ones that assumed the mantle of Grendel. So, he was actually an author as well. Hunter Rose was, and then worked as an assassin before taking control of New York's organized crime. First appeared in 1982 in the anthology Comico Primer, was quickly canceled due to the publisher's financial troubles. So there you go. And that's why I went to Dark Horse. Dark Horse then re-picked it up, and it kind of restarted when they did it. So this is, like I said, an oddball book that you wouldn't think a lot of people would even know about. But they actually even made, I think McFarlane, it's probably McFarlane Toys. They made an action figure of him when they did the toys for the Max and a lot of the other comics that were coming out. So they had a statue for him, I know too, that came in the publication every month that would come out to comic book stores that would show you the new comics that were coming out. I forget the name off the top of my head now. But there was a few statues made and things like that. And it was just a really, really enjoyable book and something just completely different from a lot of the other comics I was reading. But really, really, really enjoyed it. So.
And that's what's fun is having something that's different, having something that is obscure and something that, your friends aren't going to read. Everybody's talking about X-Men. Not everybody is going to be talking about Grendel. Not everybody's going to be talking about Sandman or, stuff like Watchmen. It was not your kid's comic book. Yep. And, like I think I told you about, my introduction to Sandman. I was in buying coins because I collected coins as a kid. Mm-hmm. And I just stumbled across, a couple pages of Sandman. The art was never what hooked me, but it intrigued me. Some of the art was really exceptional, but it was just the story and the way it would tell the story and how it would present the story that was different from your Marvel comics. There was more lore to it, just more everything. but I grabbed a picture of the action
figure.
figure.
Yep.
Yeah. I remember seeing these, when my daughters were first born. I remember going to a comic store. It would have been, probably 7 years after this one came out, because this one looks like it came out about 98. And I remember they had flooded the market. Once McFarlane did the Spawn toys, everybody just went, oh, wait, we need to make all these comic toys, and we need to make them good.
Yeah.
But, this, I don't know if this would necessarily qualify to the exact same level, but it's better than a lot of comic figures were. Do you have this one hiding anywhere, or is this one?
I don't. I've seen it at conventions too. I bet you I could probably get them pretty cheap now, because they were selling them back then for probably $50-$60 because they were kind of rare.
Yeah.
But I bet you they're probably cheap now, because probably no one remembers who he was.
Yep, that's one of the benefits and curses of this sort of stuff, especially if you collect for the sake of an investment. It's hard to have an investment because it does fade out of just everything. People just no longer are interested in them, and then the demand goes down, and you're stuck with potentially a hunk of plastic that only has meaning to you. But I think that's why it's important, if you get a signature in a comic, if you get a toy that you want to collect, make it be something that you give a crap about as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it was, I forgot too, that Tim Sale, who did Batman back in the day, also helped him work on this book.
Oh yeah. I think when we were talking about this, I think you had mentioned that, and that's a pretty good pedigree to have on a comic.
It is. Yeah, it really is. And it was just, like I said, it was just different. And in a time of comics where, and you mentioned it, I started reading some obscure things. I was reading a lot of Alan Moore's Swamp Thing, which was tremendous. I also got started reading because of Mike Hellblazer. Hellblazer is one of his favorite comics, of course, with John Constantine, which everybody kind of knows now because of the movie with Keanu, and then, of course, the series on TV. But back then, he was somebody else who was different. Again, going back to, and it's funny because I could probably root all this to Man-Thing in a way, because they're going back to horror comics. It's very, very similar to horror comics that were made in the 60s and 70s. And then they kind of got away from that. They went all the superhero route, and everything got kind of like jovial, and they kind of, everything wasn't into that dark side of it anymore. And so this era, with all these different companies that were out there, so Image, Dark Horse, all the other ones that were coming out, they were doing things a little different. And there's another comic I remember called Sax and Violence, Violenz, which was a very risque book. The woman who she's a prostitute, assassin, basically. So you can imagine there were some risque scenes in there. But yeah, they started to take chances with other books. And Alan Moore, Swamp Thing, was very, Alan Moore just didn't give a damn. Yep. He was just going to write what he wrote and didn't care. And that was his thing. And so some of those books are just so good. So yeah, that's why it's so much fun to go back and check into all this stuff, and not just the popular titles, not just the stuff that everybody knows, the Batmans, the Spider-Mans, but some of this other stuff is really, really worth a read. And you can find most of it almost anywhere now in graphic novel form and stuff. And it's really, really a cheap thing to get too.
And if you can't find it locally, then there are alternative options as well. But I mean, you can always ask your local comic book store and say, hey, can you give me a copy of this? I don't care what kind of copy it is. I just want some copy of it. Yep. And they're pretty good about being able to source a lot of this stuff. If it's still in print, that is. That's kind of the hard part, is finding one that's in print. What's interesting is talking about this reminded me of one of my favorite comics as a kid. I remember buying it from like a Barnes and Noble or something like that. Do you obviously you remember? I don't know why I'm asking, but I don't know if everyone else remembers this comic called Creepshow. It was a Stephen King book, and it was one of those things that I probably shouldn't have bought when it came out, but my sister was there with me and allowed me to buy it, and I will never forget. It left a mark on me like I have never felt before, and it is truly phenomenal. It sucks that we couldn't do this before Halloween, because these are perfect Halloween comics.
Well, hey, you know what? Halloween is all year for me, so why
That's
not?
fair.
Like when I'm doing the top 10 creepy cards on my podcast later, so it's always Halloween.
Perfect.
I wanted to mention one more quick thing. There was supposed to be a Netflix series as well.
Yes.
For Grendel, and it got canceled, though they never did it. It was announced in 2021.
Yep.
And then as the years went on, they just decided never to do it. So I was kind of excited about that. I didn't know they already had cast Hunter Rose and Jocasta Rose were already cast in it. And they had a lot of the main characters. I was really kind of upset because I wanted that to kind of take off. But, unfortunately, as things do, they got canceled. So who knows? Maybe someone will look at the property somewhere down the road and maybe they'll take a chance on a made-for-TV film or something like that somewhere down the road. But yeah, man, it's great, dude. Yeah, Creepshow is one of my all-time favorite horror films. The first one, the anthology with Ted Danson in it and stuff.
Yep. It's funny that I tried watching it with my kids, I think last Halloween, and I forgot it does not necessarily stand the test of time. The acting is very campy,
it
intentionally
is.
So, but
yeah.
It's a hard sell to a teenager nowadays to say, hey, watch this campy, weird ass movie.
Yeah.
Because there's this cool thing, like I can just picture it in my mind. I don't have a mind's eye, but I can picture it in my mind. The Stephen King scene when he finds the meteor, it's so interesting. And it was very much like a Tales of the Crypt style story.
There was a lot of them out that came following that. I mean, the camp for sure, because when they buried Ted Danson out in the sand, and then he came back as the sea monster type
was
dude.
It Ted Danson or was that Leslie Nielsen?
Leslie Nielsen was the one who buried him, but it was Ted Danson that got buried.
Okay,
yeah,
because I remember Leslie Nielsen being in it because I was a huge fan of Leslie Nielsen.
Yeah,
as we all were.
And then they had the weird creature. The creepiest thing I think about that first one was the cockroach scene, where all the cockroaches were in that one guy's house. He was like affluent to like bugs and dirt and all this kind of stuff. And whenever he'd see a bug, he'd like spray the bug and kill it because he lived in this really sanitary place. And then all of a sudden the cockroaches were coming from everywhere. Yeah, that was kind of gross. But a lot of things spawned from this. Like I remember, obviously Twilight Zone came kind of first, right? That was the first one. But then after Creepshow, you got a show called Tales from the Dark Side. Yes. That used to be on all the time. One of the best ever themes and beginnings of a show was the creepiest thing to listen to. But then you had other things that followed, different anthologies. But some of them are good. Some of them very campy. But yeah, I mean that you had such famous directors who did Romero. Parts of Creepshow. Yes.
Like, holy crap.
Yeah. A lot of them got involved in Creepshow. So it was fun. It was really cool. And then you saw a lot of them, that came after it that kind of tried to repeat it. They even did a Creepshow too, but it wasn't nearly as good. And then you even had Twilight Zone, the movie came out, I remember. And
that is a contentious movie that one day we should talk about.
Oh, it very much is because of the death that happened in that. Very gruesome. Yeah, I remember reading about that. But yeah, it's fantastic stuff. The original Creepshows were even out a little too early for me to be reading. They probably were out mid-70s. They were also magazine style. They were larger books.
Yep.
So yeah, but yeah, man, it's great. It's so much fun to talk about this because it just brings flooding memories back. And then that's what's great about comics, man.
It is. It's nice to have this sense of this peace, this joy of I'm not having to watch a movie, I'm not having to watch a TV show. I get to get lost in this entirely different universe and this just flood of art for your eyes. And I always loved it when comics would, the comic writing would be unique and different, and they would put personality in the writing of it, because a lot of the early comics is just you're reading words on a page in panels. It's more, it has more of the DNA of like the funnies, but having that text, having just something different and different layouts on the page, like they went crazy. Like you were saying with the death of Superman, but even before that, I know Sandman just went, you know what, screw this trend of what a traditional comic will look like. I'm going to do this and it's going to succeed and everybody's going to freaking read it. And
full panel pages became a thing after the death of Superman. A lot of people started to utilize them when they'd have a really big action thing that they wanted to show. It was always a full page spread, and it was something that was never done. But you're right. They took chances. And thank goodness they did, because you know what? And you might ask, well, why should I read the book? Because you're going to miss, regardless of whether they did a film for it, you're not going to get the whole thing in the film. They're never going to fit it all in there, and you're going to get parts of it that you're going to miss. Like for instance, in the Superman thing, Doomsday basically destroyed the entire Justice League, like wiped them out. The Justice League that was there at the time, and they weren't the ones you all know. There are other members that had joined over the years, but he just literally wiped them out. And so you wouldn't see any of that in the movies or in the TV shows or any of it, because they don't. That's a part of the book they don't want to put in there. So you're missing out on getting like the whole story from it. So. But yeah, that 100%. It's such a look. It's just fun to do, and yeah, we love this game, and the reason why we love this game is because of the comics, because of the origins of the cards. I would encourage anybody, if you have that comic book store near you anywhere, go check it out, and you'll find that you're probably drawn to art, obviously from the covers, and take a chance. You might find something that you never read before that you'd end up really liking. So yep.
And like I was saying with Sandman, like Sandman, the art is all over the place, and sometimes it's good, sometimes it's great, but it's still compelling. It's the kind of thing that if you don't like it right off the bat, it's hard to judge a comic by the art alone. But if that's what gets you in, and then that gets you to, maybe pick something up where the art isn't to the same degree, you want to be lost in a universe. And for me, even though the art wasn't my exact cup of tea, I got lost in the universe. And the nice thing about comics as well is that very few comics have a solo artist throughout the entirety of that. There are some that do, and usually they're miniseries, but when you've got a long running series, you're going to get a variety of different artists on there. So if you don't like the art one week, maybe you'll like it the next, or maybe you'll find something like, I know The Walking Dead shifted from Tony Moore to Charlie Adler.
Charlie Adler, yeah.
So
I was just going to mention Walking Dead too, because Walking Dead drew me in because it was black and white.
Yeah.
It was that simple.
Yep.
I'm like, how could they draw something about zombies in black and white and keep me interested? Because, you'd think you'd want to see the gore, you'd want to see the blood. It worked out perfectly fine. I read it all the way through, and they did start to colorize them toward the end of the time of the series.
Yep.
But I'll tell you what, I thought it was great. I loved it. I thought it was amazing in black and white. It didn't bother me one bit that there wasn't any color to it. So, yep.
And then my last one is Saga. I decided, the last couple plane rides when I went to SnapCon, and then when I went for this last one to Kansas City, I was like, you know what, I'm actually going to read at least on the way there or on the way back, one of the two. This one, it was on the way back when I couldn't get what I was trying to do working, and I'm glad that I did, because Saga is such a compelling story. Brian K. Vaughan has a way of writing, and with Hazel, the main character of the story, he is able to really tie in to what it must be like as her in this completely weird world. Like, I know we like sci-fi, I know we like fantasy, I know all of this stuff is all over the place, but there's some weird stuff in here that I've never seen in comics before, and it works. It would be corny, I think, in other people's hands, because like I was saying the last time, you've got a race of people that are literally televisions, and you get introduced to further characters in that universe in the later comics. I think I'm on the 10th volume, which is, I think, around the 50s that they're at. And it has not lost steam. It has continued to keep going and keep a compelling story with compelling characters and introduce new characters that you care about. And they're all complex characters. They're not just your basic, boring, here's your guy, here's his personality. There's multitudes in all of the characters, even including people that are, heroes. They're not always perfect. And it's not just your standard fare superhero comic. It deals a lot with, themes of injustice and, inequality and, wars because of that. So it's very prescient for, these days. And it's beautiful. Fiona Staples is an amazing artist. The writing is great. The whole layout of everything is absolutely compelling. What I will say, though, it is definitely a rated M comic, and there are some scenes where I wish I hadn't been on a plane next to people that I didn't know while reading it. My kids were sitting to the left of me, my adult children, just to clarify, and there were no children around me when I was reading this. But yeah, there were a few sex scenes that I was just like, I don't know if you needed to draw this to this degree, but hey, here we are. Here's a big penis. There we go.
Yeah, I have to check this out. I used to see ads for this all the time. They really advertised this book in a lot of the comics that I was reading. I remember seeing ads for it and stuff on the back cover and everything like that. So it intrigues me. I have to check this out. And I'm always looking for new stuff to read. So I'm gonna have to give it a go and try it out for sure, because it seems like it's a fun story. And I know a lot of people really love this. A lot of people really enjoyed this comic book. So yeah, I'm gonna have to check it out for sure.
And if you liked Why the Last Man, there's no doubt you'll like this. If you enjoyed that story, this is more of the same kind of thing. But yeah, I'm always glad to talk about this because it forces me to get to a point to where I actually get my ass in gear and start to read stuff. Right. And it's easy to not do that. It is so easy to just leave things on the table and kind of, I don't know, forget about them. And I'm glad we're not.
Yeah, it's why I do the Comics Corner thing on my show every week, because I want to just try to bring attention to, you know, the stories behind the cards, because anybody can just get the cards and just play, right? And you're not going to know, you know, but not too many people are going to know that Surtur originated in the 1960s and what he looked like when he first came in, you know, all that kind of stuff, and where he came from and stuff. So it's always good, and that's the reason why I bring it up on there, is because I want some people, and who knows, maybe it's younger people, maybe it's older people. It doesn't really matter, but maybe that, you know, by hearing that, and I know Cozy does one too as well now, which is good. You know, look, he streams to a lot bigger audience than, of course, I do, and that's bringing attention to the books, and I like that, because that's only going to help. Yeah, no, it's only gonna, like I said, help the sales of the book, help people to get eyes on it. Maybe go out to their local comic book stores and support them. So yeah, I think it's awesome.
Yeah, support your local comic book store. Find one. I put some in the descriptions for the last time. Do it again this time. You know, I find somewhere that's nearby you. It doesn't have to be a huge one. Sometimes the smaller ones are the best. They may not have the best deals, but you're helping out someone who is really passionate. If you own a comic book store at this point and you are still around and have been in business for a while and you're not a massive store, that person loves what they're doing and knows what the hell they're doing. So if you can, you know, do whatever you can to get out to one. Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, those big box stores, try and keep them as your last resort, because it's just, there's not that love, that you're not going to find that connection. You're not going to find that love, and you're not necessarily going to find your next comic. You can't have a dialogue with Amazon or Barnes & Noble. They'll give you recommendations, but it's nothing like going in and talking to someone who is passionate and loves comics and, you know, knows what's coming up, is excited about it. There's nothing like that. If you're ever interested, even if you don't end up buying something, 90% of these people just love talking about it and would be thrilled to have a discussion with you. And chances are you'll walk out with something. Even if it's not a ton, you'll walk out with a book or a recommendation.
They are popping up in places now. Like malls are kind of getting to be defunct, but a lot of these malls are now selling their spaces cheaper inside of them, because, you know, a lot of them are empty, and there are a lot of little ones kind of popping up around again here and there. So that's cool. And, you know, bigger stores have some bigger ones. I know there's a huge one up in Albany and stuff. So yeah, they're around, and you can certainly check out and see if there's any near you. But yeah, for sure, it's just an experience too. Going into a comic book store is just a fun experience.
It is. You never know what you're going to find. You never know what's going to be hidden around that corner. It's great. It's absolutely fantastic.
Absolutely.
And now, before we get into this month's episode, I do want to do a couple splits. I'm not going to take too long, but I think it would be really fun. I've been waiting because I had some damn good luck the last time. So let's see what we can do here. And let me see what I can make happen. So we've got a couple different cards here. You know what? I'm going to leave it up to you, Joe. You tell me which of these top row cards that you want to see split. You give me a name.
Oh, man. Let's see.
I kind of want to do the null, if that's okay.
Yeah, I'll actually, you know what? I have a whole bunch of nulls as well, so I was going to probably tell you that one anyway. So good choice.
Let's do that. I'm really hoping for God Split. I'm out of boosters for him.
Okay.
Let's see. Do we have the two dude snapping luck? I mean, gold is fine.
Okay. Gold is okay. Purple's a little weird, but gold is okay.
Yeah, it's not green, so I'll take that. It's not green.
Yeah, purple's a fun one.
It is. And I want to go with the Deathlock because I've got him. He's the only card that I don't have a God Split on.
Okay.
And I'm really hoping for him. Maybe.
No,
I'll
nice.
take
Okay.
inked with the black sparkle. That's respectable. I will take
Yeah,
that.
that's okay. Yeah, that's okay.
And you know what? Let's get rid of the X23s in here too, because why the heck not?
Nice.
But let's see what comes of this. Another inked Kirby
Another
for
inked,
X23.
yeah.
I may not be getting the gold Kirbys, but the ink Kirbys are pretty damn nice too. I can't really argue with that. Did I show you this Nico? Did I have this Nico split the last time? The one? Oh yeah,
Yes.
yeah. That we got that. I got that
Mhm.
on with you because I remember you convinced me to do the black Kirby on that.
Yep.
So why don't we do the X23? Now you have to tell me which variant though. I've got a good number of them. Would you tell me the variant and I will choose it?
I like the bottom middle. I like that one.
All right.
There
That
you
looks
go. Another
good.
ink. Oh, nice with the black crackle too. Okay.
Yes, there we go.
I like
We'll do
that.
that. All right. Well, it
She
doesn't matter.
reminds me a little of the one from Logan. I think that's why I like
concur.
her.
Yep, she's such an amazing actress. And I won't spoil anything, but we all know that she has a scene in something.
No, I've been spoiling stuff like crazy, man. The Agatha thing, my gosh.
I'm going to be honest. I'm a little peeved that it ended like it did, though. Like, I was just so anticlimactic. Like, come
Well,
on.
I'll give you a little piece of information.
Okay.
They are doing a season 2.
Yes, obvious.
By the way, that finished with only 2 million. So Loki is their highest viewed series at 11 million. Agatha finished at 9, second highest.
Wow.
So they are doing a season 2. And there's also a rumor that they are doing a death, either series or one-off. So
Interesting.
yeah, I'm very excited about that because even if they did a little one-off short type thing like they did with the Werewolf by Night, and if they went and did all the backstory with her and showed her with maybe Thanos and all this, I think that'd be fantastic.
I wonder if they're going to have her connected with Thanos now, though, or if they're connecting her with Agatha, which I am all in on. Like, I'm here for that.
Somebody made a comment saying, like, could you imagine if they just did her like throughout the Marvel universe where like they show her reactions after the snap happens when she's collecting all of these souls, and then also when the Avengers bring them all back. So technically she loses them all. Like just seeing her do, and then they said they could have her with like Tony Stark do a little scene with him. I think that would be amazing. Even if it was a little 1-hour episode or something, I think that because so many people now want to see her and Thanos, so including myself. But yeah, I thought the series was amazing. I really did. I really enjoyed that show.
I think the only issue that I had with it is the same issue that I have with Only Murders in the Building is the tone is sometimes all over the place. And
a little.
I think they could tighten that up a little bit, and because I know the actors can handle it. I know Aubrey Plaza and oh God, why can't I remember her name? Agatha.
The Agatha actress. Yeah, I know who you're talking about too, but I don't remember her name now either.
They are both phenomenal actors that I've seen doing a multitude of things. So they have the potential. That's the thing. If they tweak that, it's great. I'm not sure how Wiccan is going to be as a character. Like the actor seems, because I mean, I don't know Wiccan much more than from, Snap. It was not a character that I was very familiar with in the comics.
They are moving toward Young Avengers. That's exactly what's going on. So you already have Ms. Marvel, you have Kate Bishop, you're going to have Wiccan and Speed, and then you already got Hulkling because they showed him in She-Hulk.
Right.
So you've got the team basically all there. So I'm pretty sure it's an easy clue. And then of course Ironheart, because now you're going to have the Ironheart series coming. So I think that's where they're going. I think it's an easy transition that they could make over to that. And then they now said that because they were thinking that the Agatha series is going to lead into Vision Quest, which is the Vision series they're doing. But now they're saying going into season 2, and apparently now season 2 will lead not only to Speed, but also to the Scarlet Witch.
Okay.
So they might have been changing things up a little bit and everything like that here and there, but yeah, it's interesting. I'm very excited for Secret Wars. They did mention one thing though, that they're going to kind of fast track that. They were going to put a bunch of movies in between Doomsday and Secret War. They are not now. They're saying 2 tops, and one of them we already know is Spider-Man 4. So
interesting.
Yeah. Yep.
I'll take it.
They want to move on, I guess, they want to get on to the X-Men stuff and everything like that in the next phase. So,
well, I think they are at a point to where I think they need to, and they should.
Yep, I agree.
I think
Yep.
there's a lot of good there, and there's a
Mhm.
lot of interesting stuff that's going to happen.
Agreed.
Now, we can talk a little bit about this season, the new card, some of the
Mhm.
spotlight caches, and the variants that are coming up. We will start with Surtur. He is a 3/5. After you play a card with 10 plus power, this gains +3 power.
He's a good card. I think it's going to be a good season pass card. Not saying it's going to be the best one. I think there might be one or two that are better, but he's just going to be big. He's just going to
Yep.
get big, and he's very easy to do it. The kicker is obviously got to get him down. That's the first thing. He's a 3/5, so you got to make sure he's your 3 play. You got to get him down. If you don't, he's kind of a waste if he gets to your hand later on.
Yep.
But you get him down, and then you've got one of those like tens decks where you've got the Typhoid Marys, you've got the Scar, you've got all. He can get easily to an 11, to a 14, even to a 17 is not out of the question. And I mean, talk about value for a card, 317. I mean, and people are saying, well, Shang-Chi, you can't Shang-Chi everywhere. And these decks are going to be playing Armor and Cosmo as well to protect probably 2 of those lanes. I've already seen a few different decks. I've been trying a few. Regis had one out that had all kind of crazy power. He had an Eliath in there. He had a Hulkling, Emperor Hulkling was in there. Mine had, I had some tech stuff. So I had the Armor, the Cosmo. I had a Shadow King in there as well, because you can sometimes have bounce now that can really get up high in power. So far that I played it, it's worked pretty well. And I think Gunny T will be pleased because his big dumb idiots, I think, are certainly going to make a return, at least for a week or so.
100% agree. And I think it's interesting that they've gone with a text-based card again. I don't think that's a bad thing. You don't have the same restrictions as an on reveal or an ongoing, but also you are in a situation to where you don't have a card that can get buffed up in your deck, in your hand. This is a card that has to be played down. You have to play cards supporting it. And it does force you to play a little bit differently. But I've seen a couple people streaming it. I haven't had a chance to play it today. I've seen some huge numbers. And even if you don't get Surtur, you still have a bunch of really big cards in your deck that get to be tossed down and get to make big numbers go boo. And that is ideal. So the next card is Frigga. Joe, did you get Frigga?
I did, yeah. I 3-keyed it, but you know what? I'm not that mad because I wanted the Red Guardian MCU variant.
Yes.
So I did get David Harbour, so I'm pretty happy with that.
Nice.
And I got the copycat variant as well, which is cool. But yeah, I did get her. This card is a little weird to me. And I was listening to Cam Best's video about it, and he brought up something which is very much what I feel about it is skipping your turn. In essence, you're not going to get another card. You're drawing a duplicate card. Okay, so now you're not getting that other card that you may need to get on that turn. And I kind of agree with him when he mentions that, because you're losing, in essence, you're losing a turn to get the same card. Now, great if it's something that you wanted, but if it's something that you don't necessarily like, it's not something you necessarily wanted to play 2 of, or maybe you just needed another card a lot worse. Now you're not going to do that. And she reminds me, she's like that location that ends up copying your last card played.
Sometimes I love that location, but I wouldn't love it if I had to skip a turn to play that card, because that's the thing is you're putting a 3/3 body, which is not a lot of stats.
It's not ideal. Yeah. Alex mentioned a deck, the old Kitty Pride decks, where you double Kitty Pride, and then she just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. I think it was Shuri Kitty that he was talking about, and I could see that. I could possibly see that with this, because you definitely want. I mean, if you could get 2 of those big kitties, I mean, that's huge. So, I think there's things that she will fit into. I didn't have her ranked very highly on my list that I did for them, because, again, you've got to really have a deck that you're going to be able to get that other particular card that you want to play 2 of. And that's not always going to necessarily be the case. And then what are you missing because you do? So, yeah.
Yep. I agree. So I think we can move on from Frigga, because again, she might be a good card. We'll have to wait and see. I thought Anti-Venom was going to be crap when they released the video that I recorded with Gregor. I had crapped on him for the majority of it, and there are some really interesting decks that he fits into. Again, does that happen with Frigga? I don't know. It's different. You're not getting a 0/0 card. You're getting a copy of a card on turn 3, 4. It's just a little strange. So
she's coming into a month where there's just going to be a lot. Like Gore the God Butcher is going to be a big one. Malekith looks like he's going to be good. So she's just coming into a month where they're just going to be cards that are just better. And
did you get the Spotlight variant, or did you just stick with the keys?
No, I just used my keys. I didn't get the Spotlight variant of her. Yeah.
Speaking of, talk about a perfect transition as I transition into her Spotlight variant, which is
cool looking.
Like, this is an interesting month. I actually really like the artist. A lot of the art that he's done is top quality, but I don't know if it's top quality enough for a card that I don't care about. I already did that with Aranya. I already did that with Scarlet Spider. The variants are fine. I went for the Anti-Venom Spotlight, and that one's good, but I don't know if they're good enough to justify the resources that it costs. But these are the Spotlights that are coming out. We've got Frigga. We've got Red Guardian, who's still a Series 5. We've got the variant that is the MCU variant. We've got Copycat, still a Series 5. Still a very solid card. Like the one of the decks, I think the deck that I was playing with her was the one with, or the Anti-Venom deck that I was using had her in it as well. Super powerful to have a Copycat in that deck. You know what they're playing. You potentially have their linchpin card. I don't love the Spotlight variant that's there. It's fine. It's giving me the Valentina Spotlight variant. I don't know if you remember that one. I won't torment anyone with that, but the Red Guardian is exceptional. And
yeah, I love that.
That's enough reason to crack. I'm just hopeful that I can get it with only 4 keys and I don't have to throw away a whole 8.
Yeah, I was just glad I didn't get the token key because I lucked out and I got I got Frigga, I got the Red Guardian, I got the Copycat. I was perfectly fine with that. I hate getting the one at the double where you get the token, and so I did not get that. So I lucked out with it, but yeah. But yeah, look, I think Red Guardian is definitely worth it right now. He's making a big comeback. He's a very good card against a lot of decks right now. People playing bounce and you hit something in that bounce lane that they want back. It's gone. He's very good against destroy to shut down an X-23 or something like that. He's just a really good card right now. And Copycat, like I said, I think what I kind of forgot about that card is when she steals that card, you are under the understanding they're not getting it. It's the bottom card of their deck. So that's technically a snappable condition. If you see something that oh my God, they need, like if they're playing Tribunal and you happen to get their Iron Man, like, nope, you're not winning this game. So I'm snapping you because of what she picked up. So yeah, she's still very, very good and a very good stat line. Otherwise, there were a couple of discard decks I was playing yesterday that she hit the Apocalypse both times. And I'm like, yep, that's a snap. You're not getting it. I'm sorry, hit Apocalypse once and hit Dracula the other time. So I'm like, you're not beating me. So that's your 2 big cards. So it's a snappable condition. So she's just an easy snap card. So if you don't have these, I would tell you, and not necessarily for Frigga, but I would tell you that this is a very good Spotlight week if you don't have Red Guardian or Copycat.
It's frustrating because, again, they seem to put some of the better cards in with the cards that are just kind of like meh.
That aren't as good. Yes.
Before they started putting everything as Series 5, you can't tell me that Frigga is a Series 5 card as far as quality goes. She does not fit in that arc. There's no world she is not a Series 5.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not as high on her. I know there was other people. I was listening to Snap on this. They were talking about it. Lauren's really high on that card.
Really?
She's really high on it. In fact, I think she rated it first for the month.
It was either Frigga or it was one of the other ones. I remember I replied to her on Twitter, and she had Gore, I think, second. And I see why.
Gore with the on reveals can get big. Yes. Yeah, I think people underestimate the amount of on reveals that they sometimes play, but Gore can get big. And I even had him. I don't even have him that high either, because I think you really have to. It's got to be one of those crazy on reveal decks, or it's got to be a negative deck that you have to play with him. But yeah, she's really high on this. It's going to be one of those ones you're going to just have to wait and see, I guess. Because I'm sure somebody will probably pull something out of a hat that's going to work really well, getting that double card.
Like with
So
anti-venom, again, I crapped
yeah.
all over anti-venom, and here we
Mhm.
are with really interesting card that has
Yep.
a place in the meta. It may not be as varied as something like Copycat would be, or a tech card like Red Guardian,
Yep.
but it's still decent. Speaking of discard as well, I mean, Red Guardian hitting a Dracula, hitting a collector,
Yep.
like
Done.
that's the end.
Yep.
You're hitting their snap condition, and it hurts. As someone
Yep.
who's been, as I'm sure you have, gotten your important card hit, having your Dracula get hit or your Apocalypse get hammed, like you just want to just put the game down and step away. You're just like,
Yeah.
give me a
Yeah,
break.
that card right now, like let's a scream deck. He throw him down, he hits scream. I
Yep.
mean, there goes your win condition. I mean, for sure. It's especially too with a lot of people now playing the Agent Venom Iron Man decks, and he hits
Yep.
the Iron Man on that last turn. I
Yep.
mean, it's and many times you have priority because they won't play that Iron Man until later. So yeah, it's a big card right now. So he I think alone is worth the spotlight cash.
Now we're going to move off on to some of the variants that are releasing this week. We've got for today, we've got the Hela, which is interesting. It's fine. Pandart isn't my favorite art. I think this is one of their better ones. Like it looks interesting.
It does look cool. It looks like the MCU variant a little bit. Yeah, and I think I literally only have 2 Hela variants. I have that Gardener one.
Yep.
And I have the Pixel are the only 2 Hela variants I own. But yeah, she's in a bundle, right? Or no, she's in the shop.
She's in the she's both. She was in the new player bundle, if I'm not mistaken. If I remember looking, she is in that new player bundle.
Doctor Doom is definitely a bundle. $99 bundle. Yeah.
I wanted the Galactus. I didn't get it. I want this Doom, but I probably am not going to get it. It's so expensive. And especially if you ended up buying the friggin' Galactus bundle. I mean, you explained
that was my major one for the year. I'm done.
Exactly.
That was my one major bundle, and that was paid for by a gift for me, or I wouldn't have gotten it. So
exactly,
these $99 ones, you really just have to look at value. Yep. You have to look at the value. You have to look at the gold value to see if the gold is it. If they're giving you in a $99 bundle any less than 5,000 or 6,000 gold, I would absolutely pass.
Now, and we'll go over that. I've got the bundle set out with all of the disbursements for this week, and then it'll give you an idea. But we get a chance to also talk about it. But like I said, Snap.fan is a great resource for this. But so we've got the Hela, we've got the Doom. We also have the Heimdall and Thor. The Thor is a season pass card, and the Heimdall, we'll talk about as a value bundle. The Heimdall's a okay variant. I don't mind it. You know, it's
that's cool.
Yeah,
he's just never used unless you're going to play move.
Exactly. What I will say though is I remember looking, I was trying to figure out some decks. I ended up climbing up to around the top 5K. I think it was at like 4,800. And then I dropped. I was playing someone else's Galactus deck. I was like, well, let me just make Galactus work. And then I dropped down to 10,000. But I was able to get there. But looking at the decks that are really working well this week, there's some move decks that are out there. And I don't know about you, but I really get annoyed when I have to face a Scream deck when they've got Scream and Kingpin and they're just bouncing me around. It's just like,
Heimdall move to me is too telegraphed, and that's why I don't like it. I think like even when I play against them and they've got everything working for them, I know what they're going to do. I know where they're going to play him, and I know exactly what cards are going to slide over. And I didn't have most of the time they have priority on you. And all I had to do is last row, I'm throwing in my Shadow King right in that last row, and I know I'm going to beat him. And it's just like that simple. So this card used to come in as people used to play this as a surprise.
Yeah.
Some people would use it as a surprise in other decks and just shift all their cards over to the left, and that no one would think that was going to happen. I still think they could do something else with this card. Move needs a better closer, I think, than this. And I know they've given some cards to Move over the card, Madam Web and things like that. But you know, if you're going to make him Move's closer, he needs to be a little bit better, I think, than what he is, because it's too easily telegraphed.
It is.
Make him, if you put him in the middle, he could shove them left or he could shove them right, and you don't know which way. Do something like that, and just, or if you put him in the left lane, that he pushes him to the other side. Like you just don't know which way it's going to go. That would be the best way, I think, to go with that card, where it would make it way more playable.
I agree, and in most cases, Madam Web does pretty much that. Like, I understand the benefits of Heimdall. I understand you can get a ton of power, and chances are you will have a good win rate with it. Like that's the thing is I usually search by win rate more than cube rate because I just want to have something that's a solid win.
I agree. We'll see what it is, and I when I talked about a lot of these bundles, I'm like, you've gotta have value, but the card has to mean something.
Yes.
It has to be a card that's going to be playable and not just sit and look nice in your collection. Because if that's not there and you're spending, hard-earned money on that, you want to have something that you're going to be able to play and to have value with. And so, yeah, if you don't judge the card, like I think there was more recently a Maximus bundle. It's like no one plays that card.
Nope.
So it's like it's a hard sell. I think we have a White Queen bundle coming up soon. I mean, it's a hard sell unless you are really going to, if you're going to play that card. And I don't know, maybe they'll adjust White Queen finally in the OTA or the patch before that comes out. I don't know, but yeah, we could.
Well, the next two that we've got are the Thor album and the Jane Conquest variant. I mean, the Jane is fine. And if I remember correctly, I actually think that the Jane, there's another Jane for Deadpool's Diner, unless they mess something up, unless there's something that I was missing. Jane is also going to be in Deadpool's Diner. They're fine. The Thor is the Alex Ross Thor. But I don't know. I've talked to multiple people, and the reactions are, I think, the least desired things. There's no...
I never use them.
No, I don't
I
either.
Never use them.
A couple of times I remember it, but then I immediately forget because I just don't think about it. But also... there's no resources in these albums. And the other two albums, I mentioned this on Twitter today when I saw Taro Bang's post. The other two albums are all new variants for two sets of albums. That's ridiculous. I understand they're designed for the crazy whales, but at least with the other ones, you could build up to it. I know they had like Pixel X-Men albums coming out. They've got tons of stuff that they could do. Put those ones out with, minimal resources. Like the Thor, I get why they didn't have a ton because I don't like you said, you had 8 out of the 9. I opened it up and I had every single one of them. So I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't understand why the reactions are valued so high. They're even valued so high going into Mastery. Mastery is like, that's the highest level thing you can get is the reaction. So they value those really high, like even above like a variant, like is kind of crazy because it's not something that you even see a lot in game. I would do the emotes before I would do the reactions as a bonus. I don't know about the reaction things.
Obviously, we're a few days later. We're on Friday now. Joe, I know you mentioned you were at 96. Now, the next variants that I'm going to bring up, they relate to this, and I think we've kind of talked about this. This Surtur variant, I'll be honest, I've not been a huge fan of Victor Farrow's work. Like, I wasn't a huge fan of the Red Hulk that he did, and some of the other cards were fine. But this one is this one, I like it infinitely more than the season pass one. I'm assuming you're in the same boat there too. A couple other people that I talked to were just like, yeah, I grabbed this immediately. And it's like,
I picked it up right away. That's going to be a cool one for that orange border, that flame border that's out there. I'm excited to see what they bring for Surtur. I shared some really cool Surtur pictures on my video the other day from comics. So there's some really, really cool shot, but this one is it's outstanding. Even when you get it to like the orange border, the normal orange border, it looks amazing in 3D and stuff like that. But yeah, I like it. It's very, very cool.
Yeah, I've been waiting to hold off on upgrading it too much because I don't want that in my shop. I'm trying to get some of the better ones before Splits misses over. This one is definitely going to be cool, even just with just that animation on it. So maybe I do need to spend a little bit on there, but I think it's great. The next one is Andrea Gardino's Odin, which I think is exceptional. I think it's really cool. And it's free. I'm all on board with that, right? Yeah, I think it's gonna be a great one, and it's free. But speaking of the Surtur season pass variant, we have that one along with the Frigga Spotlight.
And that one on the right, by the way, that is straight out of the comics. I even commented on that. It's funny because I said he's wearing flame underwear, which is
he should see a doctor about that.
That may be that may need some cream or something there. But that's right out of the comics. I didn't realize, and that's why I like going into a lot of that stuff on Comics Corner because it's crazy. Like his first appearance was in the 60s and he was written by Kirby and Stan Lee. I mean, it's amazing. And he's 1,000 feet tall.
That's
And
nuts.
it's like when you go into all the statistics and stuff like that, and then you remember the part in the movie when Hulk tried to go and kill him, and Thor was yelling at him, "You
Yep.
dumb, stupid! What is it?
Yep.
Hulk destroy big monster." And I'm like, "Oh God!"
Wasn't he the guy at the beginning of Ragnarok as well that
Yes,
Thor was fighting?
yes.
Yeah. Okay. All
Mhm.
right. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's right.
Thor. They changed it up in there because they made it so where you can kind of like if you like Thor could beat him, and then somehow if you take off his crown, then that gets rid of him, and he's
Yes.
kind of imprisoned. And that's what Loki had to do is go light the crown back on fire to bring him back.
Right.
So it's a little different from the MCU. Does change things from the comics a little, but I like that variant's awesome too. He's gonna have really cool variants.
The friggin' one, it's coming up in I think the next day when we cover that, but that's the Frigga variant that I got. I was fine skipping the spotlight because I'm like, I need to hold on to my tokens because I want to at least have a stockpile of one of the two. So if I decide I do or don't want to get a card, I've got it banked up. And this month is a bit easier. Last month there were some fire variants, like the anti-venom variant. I'm really glad I went for that and got it. But this one is fine. It's not anything that I'm super excited about. The super rare I like more, and I've been using. I'm playing a little bit of Frigga. I find her a little bit clunky at a 3/3.
Yeah, I figured that might be the case. Yeah,
it's great if it's in an anti-venom deck. Like if you can anti-venom something like I was playing a Ronin Master Mold deck. Really great to be able to copy Darkhawk, Master Mold, any of the annoying cards. Even Grandmaster can be really good for that. But outside of that, I tried her in a few different decks and it works, but it's a lot of work to make her worthwhile. At a 3/3, it's a weird cost. So I don't know if she needs to be in a Surfer build or whatever, but yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. I haven't tried, like I said, I haven't really tried her yet. I've seen other people playing it against me. The one was using, I can't remember now what they doubled. I beat it anyway because it's just able to outpower it.
Moving on to the other spotlight variants, we have this phenomenal copycat and the MCU Red Guardian, which I was interested in, but then I recognized who the artists were, and they're the base art artists. So it is my guaranteed next pull, but it would require a key, and I don't know if I can justify it. Yeah. And I did get the copycat variant, which is fine, but I got the original Spotlight copycat, and I really like that one. This one is giving me the Valentina Spotlight vibes, where she's doing the whip, but she's kind of laying back. And I think comics can sometimes be difficult with perspective sometimes, and this one sort of fits into that. So I don't know if I'm going to run it, but hey, I have it. Maybe one day we can trade them, and I can give it up and trade it for another Spotlight variant.
I got the copycat too. The only thing I had for her was a Venomized variant, so I really haven't had any good variants of her. And the Red Guardian, I mean, David Harbour, I had to.
I'm so bored.
I had to get it. Yeah, man, I had to. That actually, Copycat was just in the Marvel news not that long ago, because apparently, I guess they were talking to Morena Baccarin, and she might be finally getting to play Copycat in one of the upcoming films. Whether maybe it's Secret War, it could be. But I was like, wow, that's cool. We haven't seen her in any films or anything yet. And she made a funny comment. She was saying, well, I am older now, and I'm not getting any skinnier, so it would be a good time to do it.
Well, and she's another actress that I've always liked. So having her as part of another part of the MCU, because wait, was that, I can't remember who was the one who was Deadpool's girlfriend, Vanessa from Deadpool.
That is
okay. Mm-hmm. So she's just playing a different character.
Actually, Vanessa is Copycat. That is who. Yeah. So her name is actually who Copycat is. I didn't know that either until I did the Comics Corner on Copycat when that came out, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's Deadpool's girlfriend. I had no idea that's who that was.
Interesting.
But yeah, it's very cool. I had no idea, and then all of a sudden, fans started talking to her. She was great in. I was a big fan of Serenity.
Yes.
I love Serenity, and of course she was in that. So but yeah, she's a very, very, very how can I say without being rude? Comely woman. Very very, very, very nice looking woman. Yes,
she is. She's beautiful, and she seems incredibly nice and just up for anything. Like the stuff that she has done. Firefly Serenity was phenomenal. I mean, we've talked about. I don't know if we've ever talked about Firefly, but I mean, I've got the board game.
I got in on that bandwagon kind of late because I ended up, you know how I found out about it is, and I never watched the show, and I ended up watching the film when the
Okay.
film came out, and I'm
Oh,
like,
okay.
I really like this. And I went back and then I watched the entire thing, and I literally binged it in almost 2.5, 3 days. And I'm like, oh my God, this was amazing. It was like a space Western, dude.
Yep.
I loved it. I was like, this is awesome.
Yep.
And the cast that they had, and that was just fantastic. The entire cast.
Yes.
But yeah, I was a big fan. Joss Whedon actually did the series.
Yeah.
And yeah, good old Joss. But there was such fan outcry to continue it, but they just never did.
My wife and I are both just hit by that because we used to watch Two Guys, a Girl in a Pizza Place. And that's where we discovered Nathan Fillion, who happened to be Canadian. So when Firefly came out, I remember recording it to VHS when we were out. I had my tape recorder ready to record and we'd watch it as soon as we got home. And it was something else. Like
it was very, really, very different.
It was.
Yeah.
And
very,
it's
very
a shame
different
that it ended, but I don't know.
Yeah, and Nathan's doing good for himself. He's going to play Hal Jordan in the upcoming Lantern series, actually. So yeah, so he's doing okay. I could see that. So, but yeah, completely off track.
The next one I want to talk about, I put her on here alone.
It's an ultimate variant.
This is a really good ultimate variant. Will I buy it? Probably not. I still have the Bucky ultimate pin because I'm such a sucker for the tokens being different, but this is a good ultimate variant.
They are really hard for me to spend stuff on now because tokens are so hard to come by. I bought a bunch of them at the beginning when I had a surplus of tokens because I had to buy they have a Galactus, and they had a Thanos, which I had to get both of. And then I've bought a couple more along the way. But yeah, the Bucky one is awesome. If I play more Bucky, I would get it because if I played more Destroy, and I know you do, I would definitely get it. I've seen it in some Destroy decks. And it just looks fantastic. I mean, the Winter Soldier in that looks killer too.
It is really, really cool. But I mean, the thing is, I do play Destroy. The last time I used Bucky was, oh God, I think before I had started hitting Infinite. Like
that's the thing. Yeah, he doesn't get used much, even in like regular Destroy decks. Not many people play him. Bots play him a lot. You can usually recognize when a Bucky's in a deck and it's a bot.
You either know it's a bot or a very low CL player. They're playing Bucky and they're playing a Sabretooth. To be fair, though, I have lost against a couple well-played Sabretooth hits, and I'm just kind of like, oh, well, I guess I just lost against that.
Yeah, it's not a bad card. I mean, 0-5 is nothing to really sneeze at. But yeah, I think I'm trying to think. I bought the Ultimate Electro as well. I actually have a God split on that where it had the yellow crackle when I first split him, and he was gold with the yellow crackle. So, but yeah, that was a cool one too. Some of them are very, very cool, but it's just tokens are so hard to come by. Yeah. It's just hard to dump them just on a card. So
yeah, the last one I bought was Jeff, and I was like, okay, this is good for at least.
The Killer Whale one. Yes, I got that one too. Yep. Yeah, I had to get
I think it's like I'm not spending any more tokens, but
yeah, I know. I spent enough. I've spent a lot of tokens on those over the time. Yeah.
Well, and it's Peach. I didn't get the Peach She-Hulk, and I'm still mad about that. That's one of my biggest regrets is not getting that bundle. But
I want Thanos. I want the Thanos that they put in that stupid bundle. I wanted that Thanos when I saw it. I wanted it. I'm like, it looks so cool. And yeah, I don't know if that'll ever come around again, but I definitely have to pick that up because that looks.
I think if they keep the vault going, you're just gonna have to be patient. But that's the thing.
Yeah, it'll come. Yeah, sometime next year, July or something. It'll come around. But yeah.
So the next two variants that I've got here, you're not going to see them. We talked about this on the last episode. These are promo variants. So these are cards that will be in the game to some degree. They're in the data mines today, or the 5th was their release date. They are not out there. They will be out there at some point in some way. It could be a bundle that they come up near the end of the month like they usually have. I think that's what they did with, the Ironheart was the purchases. If someone purchases using your link, I presume these two will be something similar to that.
I wonder if they might be Twitch drops too, because they haven't done anything. They haven't data mined anything about upcoming Twitch drops. The Alligator Loki would be a cool Twitch drop.
The thing is, they're not going to release a Series 5 as a Twitch drop. That's the problem.
Yeah. The Juggernaut's amazing. Yeah. That's from the, oh my gosh.
Fear itself.
Fear Itself books. Yeah, they are all. I remember Fear Itself from HeroClix. There's a Fear Itself HeroClix set that came out, and they made all those. These are all Asgard. They all got Asgardian hammers, and they ended up. Yeah, so that's a cool story.
Both
cool,
fitting ones to
cool
come out
books.
this month too. So
Yeah.
we will see. Hopefully they won't be in an expensive bundle, and they'll be achievable to get, but. We'll have to see. At least they're not putting them at the end of the web shop rewards anymore, which I thought was really crappy. I think a lot of people were really, really upset about that. Yeah,
and there's literally nothing going into December. We have no more bundles past Black Friday. There's no cards at all that we've seen that are guaranteed going into December. So we'll have to see. I mean, the patch and the OTA both come out this coming week.
Until nothing, and then it's going to be silence for a month.
Yes.
I know we talked about that. Either we talked about that. This is the problem: is when you consume so much Snap content, it's like I don't know where I heard that, but I know people were talking about how it's just like hopefully they don't break anything, because if they do, we're kind of screwed.
Yeah, they're taking all time off, obviously, for the holiday, for Thanksgiving and stuff. So yeah, it's but I'd imagine if we're gonna get data mines, it's got to be then, right? Like it's got to be next week, because they can't hide that stuff forever. So we'll see. Is it going to be the Marvel Rival series? More than likely, but we shall see.
Yep, we shall. And on the 6th, so these have already been either
they're out in the world. Yes.
They're out in the world. I really like the Swordmaster. I got snookered into getting it. I found it interesting, and we'll talk about this in the bundle, that he comes out, it's 3,000 gold, and there's a bundle that comes out that gives you 3,000 gold. It's the Apocalypse bundle.
The Apocalypse one that everybody said looks like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Yeah.
You're not wrong. And I've got him coming up. We don't spoil too much, because we got to show that coming up. But I like this Frigga. Like this is the variant that I got, because I'm a big, I don't want to run a card if I don't have a variant for it. I know that's very elitist and first world problems of me, but I prefer to have a variant, and I really like this one. This one looks really good.
That's a cool one with the hammer and everything. Yeah.
Yep.
There's so many different variations of her. Like the original one looked nothing like she does now. She had dark black hair, wore all green, very similar to Hela. And so from her first appearance, looked completely different. And then as she went on, and in the newer books, she looks a lot like Valkyrie. She's wearing like the helmet with kind of like the feathers and stuff up on the top and stuff like that. So she's gone through a variety of changes in the books and stuff like that. So, but yeah, no, I hear you. I don't think there are too many cards that I don't have a variant for, at least one. I'm kind of the same way. I don't want to just have the base art. And I know some people just don't care about that whatsoever. Yeah. But yeah, I'm the same way. The Swordmaster one, it's a cool card, but I'm like, he doesn't see play. Even in discard, he doesn't see play. And I always just kind of judged him like that. I'm like, you know what? If that's a card I'm never going to touch, I have a hard time getting. It was like the Maximus bundle.
Yep.
And it's like, it just doesn't see play. I can't see myself, saying, yeah, unless they're really tempting me with some good monetary things and stuff in there. It's like a very cool variant, but I couldn't see myself ever getting it.
Yep. And I fully get that. And honestly, probably a better financial decision. Anyway, now you've got that, especially with how rare gold is. Now you've got that gold saved up to use something else. So, I was like, I need some credits. I need to get some more splits going on here. So I was snookered in to get it. Then on the 7th, we've got the release of the Spotlight variants, which is crazy to think that this was a year ago that these cards released.
October.
Like, it has been a year. Thankfully, I have the werewolf. I wanted to get that silk, and I ended up getting the ghost spider, which one of my friends, it is his favorite card. He was so upset he didn't get it because he had stopped playing for a while, and he immediately bought it. It's fine. It's not my favorite ghost spider. There are a lot of other ghost spiders. And I don't, like a lot of people, I don't dislike Scotty Young's. That was my favorite art when I first started the game, but it doesn't scream as like a must-have. It's not... For me, it's not a 2,400 gold variant. Like I struggle paying more than 700 for most of the baby variants. Although, speaking of 700 gold, there is one in here that both of us got for whopping 0 anything, and that is the Hip Professor X. Which
that's awesome, man.
That one is really good.
I love how it has eyeballs on the wheelchair.
I didn't even notice that. Oh my god! Man. I grabbed it and I I went off to do my other things. Hip is really good about that. We actually talked about that on the tier list that I did with Perry and Gregor, is that he takes these inanimate objects like Cerebro. He's got these little thumbs up that he's doing.
Yeah.
And
of course, Helicarrier with the big smile and everything. That's the best one. I think that could be Dan Hip's best variant.
It is. He's never going to top. I would love to see it if he could top that one, but that one that isn't even just S tier. That is like above S tier. That is.
He has not. And now correct me if I'm wrong, and maybe I am, but he's not done a Galactus.
No, he did. He did.
Did he actually
did do a Galactus?
It didn't release yet, though.
No. I have it. You have it.
Well, then
if you look at Snap, you will notice that you do have it there.
Oh, I have it. Okay, I had it. Now
it's
I remember.
Not,
okay, I'm trying to remember.
It's a fine variant. It's nothing to like.
How about a Thanos?
Thanos he has not done.
There's going to be some of those that then I'm waiting for that I want then, because he's just a fun artist, man. Now I know people kind of like him or hate him. It's that there's kind of no in between with it, but yeah, I like his stuff. I like Dan Hip stuff. I really do.
My wife is not a fan of his work, which I understand.
Yeah, like, it's very much like that. Oh yeah, okay, Dan Hips is the it's this one.
Yeah, there you go. I was going to put it up on screen, but that's a whole lot easier.
With the huge head and the planet. Yeah.
I like that one, and I think the animation is really good in that one too. Mm-hmm. But then we've got the Apocalypse bundle, which you are right. It is very much the Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
It looks just like it really does. It really looks like him. And look, there's rumors floating around the MCU that when they do cast Apocalypse, that Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson might end up being. So maybe they got some inspiration from that and thought, "Ooh, let me draw one that might look a little like Dwayne Johnson." If they ever use it.
Easy early MCU variant that's already there, right?
Yeah, and look, that bundle for the 3,000 gold is probably worth it alone. Yep. $24 for 3,000 gold. You're not going to get that good of a deal in a lot of places lately, especially with gold. So if you are in need of a cool Apocalypse, now I have some really cool ones. I have the Max Grek one that I know a lot of people want, and that the split on that with the lightning going all around him and stuff.
Oh, you mean the Jacinto one, right?
Jacinto. Sorry, that's not the Max. Yeah, Jacinto. Yes.
Yeah, that one.
But I have a lot of cool Apocalypse variants. I may get this though just for the gold. Yeah. The 3,000 gold is always good to have. So.
I know you've talked about that, and you are very much a gold conservation stand. So that makes sense that you go for that. I think it's a good deal as far as that goes. Mm-hmm. But other than that, like the variant's fine. It's not going to beat the Jacinto variant.
Oh no, it's not. Yeah, it's not one of the best. It's not even one of the best headshots there are. A lot of them do those close-up like headshots. Like we got the Abomination one, which is amazing, and the Thing is, I think, my favorite one so far. That's so cool with his big rocky head right up in But yeah, it's not even one of the best portrait ones that are out there. But for the gold, it's probably worth it.
I think you're 100% right. So if you were looking for that, but we will talk about that. I do actually, that's coming up next. But the last for this week that is releasing is the Silver Samurai and the Dazzler. The Dazzler's nice because she's only 700 gold, and the Silver Samurai, I think he's only had the 700 gold variant. I can't remember if he's had any other variants. I got the 700 gold one back in the day. I don't know.
It's okay.
We'll get the Dazzler for free. And
we'll get that one for nothing. Yeah, that'll pop up in my cache, so I'll get that. I have a lot of cool the Dazzler. Oh my gosh, which one do I have? I have to look it up now. It's gonna bother me.
Now you got to check.
It's gonna bother me. I know. And it's a card again. It's another one of those cards I don't play a ton with unless I'm playing Zoo. The Archer and Dazzler. Yeah, I mean this is just like sick, man. Like the inked one, it's just fire. Yeah, so I have some pretty cool. There's Marco Fela and Ryan Kennard one is cool where she's holding the boombox. So there's a lot of cool Dazzler variants out there. And Silver Samurai, I think I'm like you. I think I may only have one Silver Samurai variant. They just never made many of him.
No, they really didn't.
So yeah, and like I said, that one's okay. It's not jumping out at me, but
it's exactly, it's fine. But I'm not like, ooh, I got to get this. Like that's
agreed.
Yeah,
agreed.
So we're now on to bundles. We've got the monthly value bundle of the Heim doll. The Heim is him bundle, which is, it's fine. You've got the credits, the gold. Like you said, it was like, no, they're not actually nerfing the gold to 700. But sure enough, they are. And it is a constant just slow drop down. We lost it in the Conquest shop, and now it's only 700 gold in the bundles. The variant is fine. The credits are decent. Like it's a good value at 178%. The bundle value is always a weird number, but I think anything when you get the currency value over like 160%, if you're going to invest, I think that is probably your best avenue unless you really, really need that variant.
This would have been one that would have had 1,000 gold before.
Yep.
And so they're slowly knocking it down. And the value is high because the credits are high. Mm-hmm. If the credits weren't higher, then the value wouldn't have been there. So because they consider credits to be value as well as currency. So yeah, it's a shame, but like I said, you really have to hold on to your gold now. Shoot for that 90 on infinite to at least get that 500, because gold is going to be, I think, a precious commodity going forward. We'll see, but yeah, I think it's going to be a thing where it's going to be harder and harder to get a hold of.
And then the next one is the monthly whale bundle, which they seem to be doing at least once a month, sometimes twice a month. Amazing variant and lots of credits, a decent number of tokens, and you get a cosmic green border. But that's an expensive bundle. It's definitely better, I think, than the death bundle that came out. The variant is a lot better, at least with regards to that. It's a good variant. It's a good avatar. The value is good, but you'll notice that the currency value is actually lower than the Heimdall bundle, which I think is interesting. Usually for those big bundles, other than like the Peach Momoko one and the Jacinto Darkhawk and Master Mold, it's almost like they know that people are going to buy stuff like Jacinto regardless of how good a value the bundle is. They just want it for that, and they want it now.
You look at this and compare it to the Galactus one we just had. Mm-hmm. And the Galactus one had 5,000 gold. Yep. So again, yes, you're getting 10,000 credits, but see, the way I look at credits too, I don't value them as much because the problem you run into with that, and had this happen to me once, where you go over 10K, it's terrible because then all of your missions can't get completed. They're going to sit there. And I know some people may say, well, who cares? But I like to get those all off the board, and you can't until you get below 10,000 and be able to put them up again. So if they would raise that level, and maybe, I don't know, maybe they're giving away more credits, maybe they will. But if they'd raise that up to 20, where you can have more before it starts making you can't have any more of these. Actually, there was a time during something, they had some kind of promotion thing going on. It was during when they were doing the imbalance patches, where you were logging in, automatically getting credits when you logged in. And I could not log into the game because it was very annoying, and other people were going through it too. And there was a sneaky way that I had to do it, to go in, spend a bunch of those credits, get them out of there, so that I could then be able to log into the game. So I'm like, nope, I'm never doing that again. So and to me, it's just like credits. I tend to save anyway. I don't go nuts with them. If there's something I want to split, I'll split something like I was doing for the Nico, trying to get my gold Galactus deck. But other than that, I'll hang on to them. And most times I'll be over. I very rarely go underneath 8,000, 7,000 credits.
Oh, wow.
I'm
always credit poor, but that's also the thing. Like, I like being able to post about it. If I'm streaming, it's something that I can do. I can have people gamble on what the split's going to be. So I think that's it, is there's a different purpose for it. But I tend to be credit poor, so I look at credits a lot more favorably. But I also get why you're just kind of like, I don't care. Like, it's not for you. Correct. So if you're somebody that spends credits, it's an okay value. It doesn't match up to the Galactus. It doesn't match up to other bundles that they've had in the past. It's close, but I think they really need to do better. I would like to see them do better for bundles that are this expensive. I don't think that's too much to ask.
Agreed. Yeah, go 5 and 5. If you want to give 10, give 5 gold and 5,000 credits.
Right. I don't know what this skimpiness is with these specific choices, but so be it, I guess.
I heard somewhere or something, I think it was on Twitter, or someone had said that they're saying or commenting that they think there's too much gold in the game. And I don't understand, but whatever. Maybe people hoard it. I don't know. Certainly I don't. But
Nope. I am the same. And speaking of gold, the last bundle for this week is the one that we had talked about earlier, the Swordmaster bundle. It's a decent value, decent variant. If you play Swordmaster, you get a decent number of credits, but I don't think this is one that people that don't have any interest should give two hoots about. So
yeah,
I don't think there's
agreed.
too much to talk about. Like I said, it's a
Yep.
good variant, but I don't know. But that's it for as far as Snap for the most part this week. But Joe and I did want to talk about one of the debacles that had come up on Twitter. A lot of people were talking about the AI art that was in the game. Now, I don't know the level of degree of AI that was used in this, but there was some generative AI utilized in the creation of these images. Maybe it was just to, adjust the colors or do something else, but there's not enough transparency to have known. And I know people were upset about that because I can't remember if these were going to be bundles or if I think it was bundles that these were going to be a part of. And I think if you're getting people to spend hard-earned money in a game where outside of the gameplay, the art is the star of the show. People have favorite artists. They go out of their way for favorite artists.
Mm-hmm.
When you're utilizing AI in that respect, I think it diminishes the hard work of people that are putting their all into creating art. As it is, those artists don't get paid a single penny for the most part, other than certain ones that are commissioned. They don't get any money for that. They may get their name out there, but that doesn't pay their mortgage. It doesn't give them a living wage. So to have a company do AI crap with art in the game, I think is crappy. I'm glad Second Dinner decided to go back on it, just like they did with the Gambit Shadow King bundle. I think that was the right decision. But what I hate that people in the community are having to bring this up as hey, what are you doing? You are all about the art and variants. That is where your main financial portions come into the game, is people buying cosmetics. And you're saying, okay, all these artists that worked their ass off to create this beautiful art for you, let's toss in one that who knows how much of that was done via AI.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a pretty big proponent of this, simply because, again, I've read comics for years and years and years. And I mean, I know the stories back in the day. Go back to one of the most popular comic book heroes forever is Superman. Mm-hmm. And the two men who did Superman never got credit for any of it. When the movie came out, I remember there was a big thing when Superman the movie released in 1978, and they got nothing. Many of these artists that did stuff back in the day now. Now Stan and Steve Ditko, they did okay because they were a smaller corporation in their own. But a lot of these artists just don't get anything. These books are published and years and years and years and years ago, and then years later, they get no residuals, no anything. So I posted this, and I was really like the community that got behind it. Everybody saying that they were going to end up like not playing Snap anymore. Because of this, and some said now, well, I'm going to be playing Snap again. So, I'm glad they took a stance here. There's too much art out there that they can get their hands on. Yep. Disney owns the property. Marvel is owned by Disney. They can get their hands on any number of comic book art over the years of, artists that are doing stuff like Peach Momoko does it, the artists that they have. And I love how they spotlight the artists on their videos now too. That's amazing because look, like you were saying, Dan Hip, I know probably a lot of weekends is selling his art, commissionable art on his Twitter. And so that's how a lot of these people make money. And, so if you see a piece that you like and you want it, in a lot of these places you can get it. And it's not right that a company that's just throwing something into a computer for the most part and messing around with it on a PC. And I'm not saying people can't create cool art on a PC. They can, but yeah, there's just too much out there of people that are still doing this thing like they used to do when I was reading comics in the 70s and 60s, that should be getting credit for it. So kudos. They made a good decision here, and I think that it made a lot of people happy.
I agree, and it did for me. And like you said, There are a lot of people that were really happy that Snap made the decision. Let's just hope the next time they make the decision before the community has to
Yeah,
have a
agreed.
backlash. Like
Yeah.
they can do their research and think, just use some common sense. Like they did not use their common sense when they went, oh, okay, let's take some generative AI stuff and put it into the game. So
Yeah.
my goal, hopefully going forward, is that the second dinner starts to think a little bit more before they do.
Yeah.
It's
Agreed.
what we ask of our children. It is
Yeah.
the least that a company that we're paying money to could do.
Yep. Agreed.
But I think that is it for this week. I know this has been a very long episode, and I thank everyone here for listening. Our goal is to record on Monday so that we can have an episode out, preferably on Tuesday. That is going to be my main goal. I want to get us recording on Monday, editing, and have it out to you guys on the new card release date. That is the goal. Whether that happens, I think that's one of the reasons that Joe and I like working so well together, is because stuff comes up, whether it be health stuff or work stuff or family stuff. Those are the number one priority. And if those come up, we need to take care of that. And we both are very, very forgiving of that. So our goal is to get everything out to you at a timely manner within our abilities. And we really appreciate everyone who is watching, listening, commenting. It means a lot.
Yep. 100%. Yep. Thank you all for checking it out. And we're going to keep bringing it to you. We'll have more looks at cards, obviously comic books and all that good stuff coming up on the next one. So make sure you stay tuned because there's more good stuff to come.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to next week. I gotta hunt down a couple new comics because I can't keep using Saga.
Yeah, I've been perusing my my Marvel app recently just to try to look for some different stuff to read, and I found a couple of new things that I've started up on. So yeah, there's always so much out there. And whether you go back a couple years or decades, whatever, and look at the old stuff, or whether you look at some new. So I'm sure I'll have some newer stuff maybe to talk about on this week's episode too. So
awesome. I'm looking forward to listening to it because it gives me other things to read as well. That reminds me, I need to go hunt down Grendel now too. Yeah,
Grendel's excellent, man. Yeah, Grendel's very good. I'm sure a lot of you guys would like it. Look it up, check it out, and we'll keep them coming.
Yep. We'll see you in the next one. Have a wonderful weekend. Hopefully I'll get this out before the weekend is over, and we'll see you soon.
Take care, guys.